Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks on how to get better at CSGO, and most of this should also apply to Counter-Strike too if you have access. So in this video I'm going to show you some of the most important things that you're going to need to know to improve your skills and have more fun in the game. And whether you're a noob or a veteran player, I'm sure that you'll find something useful in this video. I've tuned it to be useful for both newbie players and experienced players, and this will also cover some things that some experienced players tend to forget over time. So let's get started. So the first tip is for the absolute newbie beginner players. The first thing you need to do is adjust your crosshair to your liking. So the crosshair is one of the most important things in any first-person shooter because it helps you aim and shoot accurately. In Counter-Strike, there's quite a few ways you can customize your crosshair in-game, or you can even use a community-created map that will also help you create your own crosshair. What I recommend is setting up a crosshair in the settings of the game. You can go in and tweak any sort of crosshair that you want, and it will show you how it looks in-game. And then I would probably play a few death matches just to get used to the crosshair and see if it's something that you like or if there's something that you need to change. Like for instance, you might find that the gap is too long to hit players that's long range, so you might want to kind of make the gap thinner to hit players from longer ranges while also still be able to hit your shots up close. Moving on into the second tip, this kind of ties into the first tip, but after you've customized your crosshair, you need to learn where to place your crosshair. Learning where to place the crosshair is an important tip that you should always keep in mind. You don't want to aim at the ground or at the sky because that's going to make you lose precious time when you encounter an enemy. Instead, you want to aim at the head or slightly above it because this will give you a higher chance at delivering headshots instead of body shots or neck shots. And over time, you're going to learn how to do this on your own. What I recommend is going into deathmatch yet again and just practicing on each map. And if you lose an engagement, try to look back and maybe record your gameplay and see where your crosshair was. And then next time, just make a note of where to aim your crosshair to keep it head level. And eventually over time, this will come to you on each map. You can take this even further by pre-aiming common spots where enemies might be hiding or peeking, such as corners, windows, doors, etc. That way you'll be ready to shoot as soon as you see them. And this can actually make a bad player into a good player if you try to pre-fire some of these common spots, or that you pre-aim and you're just ready for the shot. Either way, as long as you're close to their head, you have more of a chance of winning that gunfight than if you had your crosshair towards the ground, sky, or another body part. The third thing that you want to avoid, and I don't hear this talked about enough with newer players, is to avoid using W to move between cover. So this is a very common mistake that many beginners make, and this is one of those tips that I think even some more advanced players could use, because this is something that we know, but we forget over time. So with most beginner players, they think that moving forward is faster than strafing sideways. However, this is not true in CSGO. When you press W, you lose accuracy and make yourself an easy target for your enemies because you're walking towards them. Therefore, your hitbox is getting larger to them because of how depth perception works. So instead, you should use A and D to move left and right, and you want to stop before shooting, and this will make you much more accurate and harder to hit. So in your next game, give this a try. Quit holding W to move around the map and try to position yourself where you can just use A and D to move left and right and clear out corners and things, and you'll find that you win a lot more gunfights this way, and it's a lot easier to actually counter strafe if you use A and D. So counter strafing is more of an advanced technique, and I think that it deserves a video on its own, but you can definitely look up plenty of guides out there, and I might make one myself. The fourth thing that you need to learn is narrow peeking or shoulder peeking. So narrow peeking or shoulder peeking is when you peek out of a corner just enough to see a small part of the enemy or the map without exposing yourself too much. This is a very useful technique that can help you gather information, bait shots, or even surprise your enemies with a quick kill. So to do this, the easiest way, of course, using the third tip that I gave you before, you need to use A and D again. But this time you're going to tap them lightly and quickly just to kind of strafe into the corner and out of the corner. You can usually bait out a shot this way, and I'll show you an example right here. Here's another quick tip for crosshair placement. Use the map to your advantage. The developers create landmarks on the map to actually line up your shots. So in this example here, I line it up with a cross on the X, go to the left, and there's the enemy's head. The more you play, the more of these you will find, so subconsciously try to find these on each map and you'll normally find them on every single map and every single common corner. There, I actually had the bot bay down a shot, so now I can gather intel on where an enemy is at, and if I just decide to peek the corner again, I can already have my crosshair aimed at head level and ready to pre-fire exactly where he shot me on the mini-map. So as you can see, each tip that I give you builds on the last tip, so it's important that you learn these tips in order, that way that you can place them all together and make yourself a better player. So the fifth thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that you're using your utilities. So utilities are grenades, flashes, smokes, molotovs, etc. These can help you gain an advantage in different situations. For example, you can use grenades to deal damage or force enemies out of corners or covers. You can flash enemies to blind them or make them turn away, giving you an easy kill. You can use smokes to block vision or create gaps and use one-ways. You can use molotovs to deny access or to flush them out of a corner. Some things that people don't think of as utility is things like when you defuse, you can use fake defuses to lure out enemies that way. You can actually create fake reloads by canceling your reload sounds, and you can use these to just fake out your enemies and trick them into thinking that you're vulnerable or doing something else like reloading. However, don't just throw utilities randomly or waste them. You need to learn how to use them efficiently, and we'll go over that in another video as well. But just to get you started, I would look up some smoke lineups for the common maps that you play. I would look up some good pop flashes, some good flashes for your team. Just any way that you can use utility to gain an advantage over your opponent. The sixth thing that you need to learn is how to manage your economy. Economy is how much money you have and how much money you spend on buying weapons and utilities. So you need to be really smart about your economy, and that's a game all in itself, and you need to make sure that you buy according to your team's situation and strategy. So for example, if your team's low on money, you might want to save some money for the next round by buying some cheaper weapons, or not even buying at all. That way the next round you can buy with your full team, and that way you can all be effective with rifles or, you know, just a better weapon than pistols. On the other side, if your team is rich on money, you might want to buy more expensive items or weapons and drop some for your teammates who need them more. If you happen to have extra economy, so always make sure that you're calling this and saying, hey, I have some extra cash, does anyone need a drop? Or vice versa, you could be like, hey, are we buying this round? Does anyone have cash? Could I get a drop? And not only do you have to think about your economy, but you also have to consider what weapons your enemies will have and what weapons that you can use to counter them best. So for example, if the enemy team, you know, are buying ops, you might could buy a scout to try to contest the op, and you definitely don't want pistols against an op. So just be thinking about that, and over time, you're going to learn how to gauge economy, and eventually you're going to understand what enemies can buy and what they can't. Another tip for this is if you hold down tab and look at the scoreboard, you can see the enemy's money situation before the round started. Now this isn't going to update and show you, you know, if they had bought items, but you can see how much money they've started the round out with, and that should give you a pretty clear detail on how they're looking economy wise. So my seventh tip is to observe the game sounds. I don't see a lot of new players utilizing this very well, or they might just not have the greatest of headsets. But in Counter-Strike, sounds are very important because they give you a lot of information on what's going on in game, especially at lower ranks when players are making so many mistakes. So for example, you can hear footsteps, gunshots, reloads, bomb plants, diffuses, etc. And these can pretty much tell you where your enemies are going to be or what they're doing. You can also use this to your advantage by making noise yourself or staying silent depending on what you want to achieve in that round. So for example, you might make noise to distract your enemies or lure them into a trap, or you can stay silent and sneak up on them and flank and catch them off guard. However, you need to be careful not to give away too much information or fall for your enemy's tricks like fake diffuses and things like that. So it's really important that you make yourself aware with all of the sounds in the game, that being exactly what guns being reloaded, what guns being shot. Is it a fake defuse? Do you hear them step after the defuse so you know it's fake? Does it sound like they're holding the defuse? These are things that you need to think about and listen for in the game because they can give you a lot of information. Okay, I promise we're almost done. So the eighth and final thing that you need to do is to warm up before your competitive matches. I know you don't want to warm up before your comp matches. I don't either. Nobody wants to warm up. That's not the fun part of the game. However, that's what's going to separate a good player from a bad player. And if you want to be consistent, you're going to have to practice before you throw yourself into a comp match. And if you aren't sure what a comp match is or a competitive match is if you're a newer player, it's where you play against other players of similar skill level or rank, and then you can rank up or down depending on your performance. These are usually more intense than casual matches, and they can be more challenging, so you need to be prepared and focused. So to do this, you need to warm up your aim, movement, and game sense. What I recommend for most players is just run some deathmatch. Some players will also recommend that you do some aim training on things like Kovacs or aim labs, or if you really want to, you can run some casual matches before jumping into competitive, and this can help you get into the right mindset and mood for the game. Now, all of these come with their own video that I can make for them specifically on how to warm up your aim, how to warm up your movement, how to warm up your game sense. But you want to take some of those tips that I was talking about before and work on those as you go into comp. So there's some of the tips and tricks that I've learned from playing CSGO over the years. There's a lot more in-depth things that comes with CSGO tips, like for example, how we was talking about sounds and warming up and utility usage. However, we're going to save those for a more advanced video. So I hope that you found these tips useful and helpful. And if you did, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more Counter-Strike content. Also, let me know in the comments what other topics you want me to cover in the future. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.